Well, hello there, sir. We have your calendar clock that I'm looking at right now, and taking a poke at it here. Took the dial pans out, as you see, and we're examining the mechanism that's way in the back of the clock. May not be able to see it through the nest and forest of gears, but there is a cam inside there that triggers the calendar mechanism through a mechanical linkage here. As you can see right here, this little rod that goes up. It's kind of hard to see behind the label, but at any rate, it comes down here to interface with this this mechanism here. Lifts it up very slowly over a period of time. When it drops down, it advances the day, and it goes up quite a ways. You have to lift this thing. Actually lifts up quite a bit and engages. Now, I'll bring something to your attention. This little thing right here where my finger's in the way is what you call the gathering pawl, perhaps. And it has to lift up and drop down. And it drops down quite abruptly, mechanically, because it falls off the short end of the lobe, or the tall end, falling into the short end of the lobe. That's what triggers the mechanism. But I looked it over, and everything seems to be working like it should. I did notice, however, that when it would trigger the change of day, that it wasn't at the 12 o'clock. So I have it keyed now so that at 12 o'clock midnight, if there's an AM/PM bias, which there is not on this clock, but the closest we can get to is a 12 o'clock trigger. And it seems to be working okay. I made some adjustments down here and fiddled around with the mechanism. It's a bit of a Rube Goldberg contraption of cams and lobes and lifting pieces and, good Lord, everything else in here is quite clever, really. Ingenious, in fact. But what concerns me a little bit is the degree of wear that you have in the movement. I want you to look at this little spot right here. These are the pivots. On a clock, it rarely ever wears out the gears. The gears may get damaged, but they don't usually get worn out as such. But these little holes here, these are called pivots. And the pivots are basically the axle of the gears. And they go through the back plate and the front plate, and they protrude out. You're just looking at the end of, basically the end of the axle. This is what gets worn out in clocks, and I'm going to show you where. Watch carefully how this thing wiggles around a little bit when I let off on the pressure on this gear. You see how that's moving around like that? Kind of moving from a 2 o'clock to a 7 o'clock position. All right, that's pretty worn out. All right, that's pretty rough. Same thing goes with this one. This one's going to require a little more pull, because it shouldn't wander around in the hole like this. Should it move? Yes, of course, but it doesn't have to move around laterally in the hole. It has to rotate in the hole. This is indicative of excessive wear. At some point in the not-so-distant future, these guys are going to have to get rebushed. And the same thing over here on your count wheel. This is the strike side of the mechanism. And it is equally worn out. A lot of clock repair places do not do the rebushing. Why? Well, because the whole thing has to come apart. And it's a big job, and a lot of people don't have the equipment or the expertise to take this entire mechanism apart. All the gears come out of it. All of these little holes get remachined. It's quite an endeavor, but suffice it to say, it only has to happen once every 65 years or so. I use bronze bushings in mine, and that'll get you back into tolerances. But eventually, what'll happen is the clock will stop, or it'll run intermittently, or it won't run right, or it's not doing what it should do, like triggering the strike at the proper time. All these things are a concern. I wouldn't necessarily sink a lot of money into it right now. It seems to have enough impulse to the pendulum. As you can see, here's the leader. The pendulum is off to the side over here. But you know, it's gonna need to be rebuilt. Basically, you got a clock engine that's 165,000 miles on the odometer, and it's in dire need of a rebuild. So keep it in mind. I think that we are past the worst of it here with the mechanism. I'm going to babysit it and make sure that it is functioning like it should and not doing anything that was unexpected. So I'll keep you posted.